The National Desk, America's News, now.
Waiting on retaliation. Why the assassination of a Hamas leader could bring the Middle East closer to an all-out war.
A big key to trying to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we can move to a better place is getting the ceasefire.
The economy is moving closer to the point at which it will be appropriate to reduce our policy rate.
The Fed holds rates steady, but sends a signal for the first rate cut in nearly 4 years. How the markets are reacting to the mixed news. And processed meat warning. A listeria outbreak becomes deadly as the long-term impact grows more severe. Just how dangerous is the threat? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Tonight, less than 24 hours after Israeli forces killed a second-in-line Hezbollah commander in Beirut, Hamas's political chief Ismail Haniyeh was struck and killed by Israeli forces while in Tehran, marking back-to-back assassinations that have thrown the Middle East conflict into an unpredictable new phase, putting it on the brink of an even wider war. Israel says Haniyeh, placed on the U.S. terror watch list in 2018, was behind the militant group's October 7th attack on Israel. Living in both Doha and Tehran, he'd been a key figure in the negotiations on bringing an end to the devastating Israeli military bombardment in Gaza that came in response. And tonight, at nearly 300 days of war in the enclave, questions over what this could all mean for potential peace in the region. Earlier today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken refrained from weighing in on what it might do to the ceasefire negotiations.
I'm not going to speculate on what impact any one event might have on that. I've learned over many years never to really speculate about that because we simply don't know. What I do know is the enduring imperative of getting the ceasefire, and what I do know is we'll continue to work at that every day.
However, the question is what happens now as Hamas says the assassination takes the battle to new dimensions. The National Desk's Christine Frizzell reports.
On the streets of Tehran, protesters gather to mourn the death of Ismail Haniyeh, the political head of Hamas, killed in an attack there. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard now threatening Israel with a, quote, harsh and painful response. His death comes after another targeted attack, for which Israel has claimed responsibility, a senior Hezbollah commander in Beirut, Lebanon. It's brought warnings like this.
The wave of war is coming rather than peace coming to the region.
It follows a weekend attack on a soccer field in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights, in which 12 children were killed. Israel blamed Hezbollah.
This is Israel doing what it said it would do, which is go after the leaders of terrorist organizations and groups that have killed and targeted its own citizens.
Middle East expert Brian Katoulis says the events show that a diplomatic solution or ceasefire to end the fighting in Gaza and bring the hostages home is now even less likely. The killed Hamas leader said to be part of the negotiating team with predictions of instability, but possibly not a full-scale regional war.
Stepped up terror attacks, the return of the era of certain jetliners being targeted and other things. A bit more of a chaotic situation as opposed to a conventional war.
Top White House officials, though, continue to insist coming to a ceasefire agreement is still the top priority for the United States. Meanwhile, there are more than 80,000 U.S. citizens living in Lebanon who have now been urged to leave the region immediately or be prepared to shelter in place for long periods of time. Amira?
And Christine, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has spoken since these attacks. What did he have to say?
A couple things. He confirmed the killing of the Hezbollah commander, Fouad Shakur, who he blamed in part for the deaths of those 12 children in that strike in Golan Heights. He did not mention the killing in Iran. He also said, quote, for months, people have continued to tell me to end the war. He said he didn't surrender to those voices then, and he will not do so now.
All right, Christine Frizzell, more to come on this, that's for sure. Live in D.C. for us, thank you. And tonight, as new fires crop up in the West, federal officials are trying to figure out what started a fire burning near Colorado's Roosevelt National Forest right north of Boulder. They're asking the public for any information about the cause of the fire that's burned now almost 7,000 acres since Monday. In Boulder County, a sheriff said today that one person had died in the Stone Canyon fire burning north of Lyons, covering over 1,300 acres. And in Northern California, the Park Fire, the fifth largest wildfire in the state's history, now burning over 389,000 acres. That fire now 18% contained, but it has already destroyed more than 275 buildings. Tracking Decision 2024, we're giving you a live look at the New Holland Arena of Harrisburg's Farm Show Complex in Pennsylvania, where former President Donald Trump will be speaking shortly in his first trip back to the state since the assassination attempt that happened just 2 weeks ago. Earlier today, Trump was in Chicago meeting with the National Association of Black Journalists, where the question and answer period quickly became very heated between Trump and moderator Rachel Scott of ABC News.
Now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. If I came onto a stage like this and I got treated so rudely as this woman treated me.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm fine with it because she was very rude, sir. Very rude. That wasn't a question.
Well, Trump at one point said he's the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln, which was met with boos and some cheers. Vice President Kamala Harris is in Houston meantime tonight for a fundraiser after a rally that happened last night in Atlanta. Her campaign has announced that she will tour several battleground states next week, along with her yet-to-be-named running mate. Beginning in Philadelphia on Tuesday, the two are then expected to make stops in Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. So quite the lineup for her. And some names rumored to be on the short list for that top VP job with Kamala Harris include Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Meanwhile, Google and Meta accused of censoring political content as the race for president heats up. Both big tech companies saying what happened on their platforms was not deliberate. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins joins us with more from Washington.
Conservatives once again feeling targeted by big tech companies. Google and Meta accused of censoring content related to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump.
This is absolutely censorship.
Supporters of the former president taking to X, posting what they've noticed, such as Meta labeling a highly circulated photo of Trump in the moments after the shooting as altered. Others, including Donald Trump Jr., alleging Google purposefully blocked search terms related to the assassination attempt. A Facebook spokesperson admitting to an error, saying the issue has been fixed. Google telling Fox Business no manual action was taken regarding their content.
That is what I believe is critical for Americans to understand. These internal tools can affect how and what information Americans do end up seeing.
The former president, though, calling it another attempt at rigging the election, urging supporters to go after Meta and Google. Democrats, though, also feeling targeted. X, formerly known as Twitter, now owned by Trump supporter Elon Musk, temporarily locked the account White Dudes for Harris after the group raised $4 million for Kamala Harris. X reinstated the account a few hours later after a windfall of complaints.
Both in this Trump situation and on Twitter, where you saw a quick reaction, a quick response from the social media platforms that want to get it right. Because at the end of the day, they do want to create a community, an online space where their users are happy and they're going to keep coming back.
GOP lawmakers getting involved. Representative Matt Gaetz writing a letter to Homeland Security Director Alejandro Mayorkas demanding they hand over any documents related to big tech's alleged censorship of the Trump assassination attempt. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
And new tonight, New Jersey's assault-style rifle ban has been ruled unconstitutional. A federal judge cited the Supreme Court's 2022 Bruin decision that overruled New York's gun restriction law, saying he was compelled to follow that decision. The judge did allow New Jersey to keep its imposed limits on ammunition magazines to 10 rounds or fewer. The state's Attorney General Matt Platkin says he will appeal the ruling. The floating barrier in the Rio Grande at the southern border can stay in place for now. That after an appeals court reversed an order from a lower court telling Texas to remove the buoys. Some of the judges wrote that the U.S. did not present enough evidence that the buoys were disrupting navigation or commercial traffic. But the debate is not over yet. It goes before a judge in the U.S. District Court next Tuesday. Buses carrying asylum seekers cannot be blocked from entering New York City following a state Supreme Court ruling. The justices rejected a request from Mayor Eric Adams to restrict Texas-based bus companies from sending migrants there. In January, Adams sued 17 bus companies, arguing they violated a social services law because they didn't provide a way to support the people they were dropping off. South Carolina's Supreme Court has ruled that the death penalty, including by firing squad, is legal. The state hasn't performed an execution since 2011 because it ran out of lethal injection drugs and couldn't access more. 32 inmates are on death row there, though many are appealing their sentences. It's unclear when executions will resume. Coming up, interest rates could finally be coming down soon. What new signals from the Federal Reserve mean for the economy. Then a deli meat recall is getting even bigger, covering dozens of products that could be contaminated with listeria. What to look out for. And advocates in Washington are outraged that dozens of young people were moved from juvenile facilities to adult prisons. Why officials said it was necessary when we come back. Right now, 90 million Americans are at risk for severe thunderstorms from the northern and central plains and upper Midwest to the southern Appalachians. The worst threat is in parts of South Dakota and also Nebraska into Minnesota and Iowa. Very large hail expected to be possible in the plains. Wind topping 75 miles per hour, also a big risk. Vermont's governor is warning about severe weather there tonight as the state cleans up damage from bad storms yesterday that brought over 8 inches of rain to some places. More flash flooding could be on its way. And there's a tropical storm watch brewing in the western Atlantic Ocean. The National Hurricane Center is following a system near the Caribbean's Lesser Antilles that is producing showers and thunderstorms. While there is no threat in the next 2 days, there is a 60% chance it could develop into a tropical storm this weekend. The storm could impact the greater Antilles, Bahamas, and Florida as early as Sunday. The Federal Reserve holding interest rates where they are. That was expected, but hinting that it is getting a whole lot closer than ever to cutting rates as inflation cools and unemployment slightly rises. National correspondent Atrel Nashar has a closer look at what this means for individuals and the greater economy.
Usually the bearer of bad news, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell on Wednesday gave reason to be optimistic about the economy, acknowledging the Fed could cut interest rates as soon as their next meeting in September.
The broad sense of the committee is that the economy is moving closer to the point at which it will be appropriate to reduce our policy rate.
Fed officials are finally starting to see the signs they needed to know their restrictive rates are working. The latest came Wednesday in an ADP jobs report showing private payrolls in July grew at their slowest pace since January.
We just want to see more and gain confidence.
Lower interest rates would bring relief to prospective home buyers or anyone with a credit card. But federal budget hawks are also watching the Fed's next move very closely as the national debt just reached a dreaded milestone.
$35 trillion. We did it. Congratulations.
Arizona Congressman David Schweikert scolding his colleagues for not taking the debt seriously enough to do something about it while they still can. The Republican making this rare admission to prove his point.
The economy is good. The actual baseline data on GDP is good, and you're still burning almost $80,000 a second in borrowing.
The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projects a nearly $2 trillion budget deficit for 2024. CBO Director Philip Swagel says this about a future rate cut from the Fed.
The amount of debt has gone up by so much that even modestly lower interest rates won't change the fiscal trajectory.
He says the debt has not hit a crisis level yet, that it's still manageable. It's just a matter of whether policymakers are willing to act.
It's going to be a challenge for whoever is the next president to look out ahead and address the fiscal challenge.
How they tackle that challenge, whether it be higher taxes or cuts to social programs, can be tough to campaign on. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar reporting.
And taking a look at the stock market, it rallied today in response to the possibility of those rate cuts. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite had their best day since February, and the Dow Jones was also up. Boeing now has a new CEO who will start on August 8th. Kelly Ortberg will replace Boeing's outgoing CEO, Dave Calhoun. Boeing reported a huge core operating loss for the second quarter of $1.4 billion. The company has been under heightened review since the mid-flight door plug blowout on a 737 MAX in January. Meantime, Delta Airlines facing $500 million in losses following that CrowdStrike outage that happened a couple weeks ago. In the days following the strike, thousands of Delta flights had to be canceled, stranding roughly 500,000 Delta customers as the company struggled to get their systems fully back online. Delta CEO Ed Bastian saying CrowdStrike has offered them no financial support. Delta says they will sue for compensation.
Well, we're not looking to wipe them out, but we're looking to make certain that we get compensated, right? However they decide to, for what they cost us. $500 million in 5 days.
Popular deli meat company Boar's Head is expanding its recall of contaminated deli meats, identifying an additional 7 million pounds of packaged meats due to a deadly listeria outbreak. At least 71 different products are impacted, made and packaged between early May and July 29th. At least 2 people at this point have died, with more than 30 others becoming ill from eating that tainted meat, and that's according to the CDC. Last week, Boar's Head recalled 200,000 pounds of sliced deli meat and poultry. Could bacon be bad for your mental health? In some cases, new research says yes. According to a new study presented today by the Alzheimer's Association, people who eat 2 servings a week or more of processed red meat have a near 15% higher rate of dementia than those who eat less than 1 serving a week. For better cognitive results, researchers say that additional servings of nuts or beans lowered the risk of cognitive decline. The study followed more than 130,000 adults over a 43-year period, but has not been peer-reviewed quite yet. Testing for colon cancer has never been easier. The Food and Drug Administration has just approved the first blood test to be used as a first-line screening to detect colon or colorectal cancer. Medical reporter Liz Bonis explains how it works.
Average risk is no family history, no inflammatory bowel disease, no prior colorectal cancer or polyp on your own.
Dr. Janice Rafferty is the chief of colorectal surgery and the medical director of surgical oncology at Ohio's Christ Hospital. She says this new blood test called SHIELD will detect nearly 90% of colorectal cancers in the body.
The problem is it detects only 13% of polyps, and polyps are the non-cancerous precursor, right? As I tell patients when they have a polyp, if you leave it to its own devices, it's going to turn into cancer.
During a colonoscopy, doctors can remove a polyp, and the risk from that polyp becoming cancer then is gone. What does this test actually test for?
It's looking for circulating tumor DNA. So large tumors and some large polyps will secrete or shed, I should say, little fragments of DNA into the blood.
If the blood test is negative for circulating tumor DNA, you likely would repeat the test in a few years if you were at least age 45.
Liz Bonis reporting there. And coming up, the challenges security officials are planning for as next month's Democratic National Convention gets closer. We'll be right back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
A group of Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies recently returned home after being deployed to Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention weeks ago. New images show deputies on bikes using their specialized training in crowd management during large-scale events. The U.S. Secret Service, authorities, and organizers are still in the planning phase for the upcoming Democratic National Convention in Chicago next month. Sheriff Bradshaw says visitors and residents could see maximum security, which involves accommodating protesters, something PBSO is very familiar with.
And we've learned how to make sure that people can demonstrate safely, get their message out, yet not have a problem when they're doing it. And the main thing is just keep people separated.
The system isn't working. The system is broken.
A strong statement echoed by King County Councilmember Reagan Dunn following weeks of outrage from youth advocate groups after 43 young offenders were suddenly transferred from Green Hill School to adult prisons.
Traumatic separation of those young people from Green Hill to DOC even brought me vicarious trauma.
The Department of Children, Youth, and Families says overcrowding issues and a rapidly growing population in these facilities forced their hand. DCYF says the people transferred are men over the age of 21 with adult sentences who would have been moved to DOC when they turned 25 to serve out the rest of their sentence. But the judge says the state violated previous agreements reached with several Green Hill residents.
From those very first steps in the water, every Olympic swimmer gets their start somewhere. For Olympian Tori Husk, she made a name for herself at this very pool.
She's arguably the most successful high school swimmer of all time.
Her former coach, also nicknamed Tori, shows us her awards and trophies from high school on proud display at the Yorktown Aquatic Center, her path to the Olympics. Tori won the gold over the weekend in the 100-meter butterfly, beating out her Team USA teammate by just 0.04 of a second. She invited her to the top of the riser with her during the medal ceremony.
Special moment for both these girls.
A special moment for her coach, too, getting to watch her win.
When the camera showed her, like looking like this, like I couldn't help but feel that way. I'm sure dozens of people probably, were on the verge of tears or maybe even crying themselves.
So special. And by the way, Tori Husk just won a silver medal in today's women's 100-meter freestyle final, right behind Sweden's Sarah Storm. Congrats, Tori. And coming up, more from Paris and the all-time record swimmer Katie Ledecky getting closer to a gold in the Olympic pool. Stay with us. Well, as expected, Katie Ledecky, she has done it again, winning the gold medal in the 1,500-meter freestyle race with a new Olympic record time. This win represents her 8th Olympic gold and 12th medal overall, tying both marks with Jenny Thompson for the most ever by a female swimmer. Katie has 2 events left in Paris, the 4x200 free relay tomorrow and also the 800-meter freestyle on Friday, where she is the heavy favorite to win for the 4th time. Go, Katie. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. We do invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. I'm Amira David. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful night.